Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a time in every nation's journey when choices must be made, not out of luxury, but out of necessity. We find ourselves standing at a crossroads, watched closely by those who misunderstand our struggle and judged by those who have never walked in our shoes. When asked, "Why did you go to Russia?" the answer is not found in politics or headlines. It is rooted in something deeper, the hunger of a people for dignity, the desire for sovereignty, and the unwavering will to rise beyond centuries of exploitation and silence. We have been told where to look, who to trust, and how to think. We've been fed alliances dressed in diplomacy, yet bound in dependency. Aid wrapped in promises, but laced with conditions. For too long, we were expected to remain in the shadows of history, obedient, voiceless, and waiting for a future someone else would build for us. But that time is over. The visit to Russia was not a retreat from old friends, but a bold step toward new partnerships. Not a rejection of peace, but a declaration of independence. When a nation decides to defend its soil, educate its youth, and build its own destiny, it must choose those who respect that journey, not those who fear it. Some may be shocked. Let them be. Shock is often the reaction of those who never imagined that the silenced would one day speak, that the forgotten would one day stand, that the pawns would one day take the board. We seek no master. We seek no conflict. We seek the right to choose, to dream, and to stand firm in the face of threats, with our eyes forward and our backs unbent. This moment is not just about where we went, it's about why we went and what we are becoming. A people unafraid, a nation reborn, a future reclaimed. When a nation chooses its path, it asserts its sovereignty, the fundamental right to govern itself without outside control or influence. This is not a privilege given by others, it is an inherent right, a birthright of every people. The decision to engage with new partners, especially those who respect that sovereignty, is a powerful declaration that this nation will no longer allow its future to be dictated by external powers or agendas. It sends a clear message. The era of foreign interference in determining the destiny of this country is over. The people demand the freedom to shape their own policies, pursue their own interests, and build a future that reflects their values and aspirations. This step is not merely diplomatic, it is the reclaiming of autonomy, the very essence of independence. The journey towards sovereignty has often been fraught with challenges. For decades, this nation has faced pressures and limitations imposed by long-standing alliances that, while framed as partnerships, often came with implicit conditions and expectations. These alliances sometimes required sacrificing national priorities for the sake of maintaining favor or receiving aid. The reality has been that true self-determination was compromised as the country was expected to align with interests that did not always serve its own people. The decision to reach out beyond these familiar ties signals a refusal to remain constrained by those limits. It reflects a commitment to chart a course that prioritizes national interests first and foremost, regardless of how unconventional or surprising it may appear to the world. At the core of this assertion is the belief that no nation should be reduced to a mere pawn on the global chessboard. Sovereignty means the power to make choices, sometimes difficult, sometimes unpopular, but always reflective of what the people deem necessary for their survival and prosperity. The choice to engage with new partners is an exercise in agency, an expression of confidence that this nation can stand on its own feet and pursue relationships grounded in respect and equality rather than dependence. It is a step toward ending the cycle of external control that has historically undermined the country's growth and dignity. Moreover, this move represents a profound shift in how the country views its role on the international stage. Sovereignty is not isolation. Rather, it is the freedom to participate in global affairs on one's own terms. By seeking out new alliances, the nation is signaling its readiness to engage with a broader spectrum of partners, each bringing different perspectives and opportunities. This diversification is crucial in a world that is increasingly multipolar, where influence is no longer dominated by a single power or a narrow set of relationships. It is a recognition that national interests are best served by openness to various collaborations that respect sovereignty and contribute to mutual benefit. The implications of reclaiming sovereignty go beyond diplomacy and international relations. It touches every aspect of national life, from economic development to security, from education to cultural identity. When a country controls its own decisions, it can tailor policies to address its unique challenges and leverage its strengths. This autonomy fosters innovation and resilience, allowing the nation to invest in its people and resources without external pressures dictating priorities. It means that the government can focus on creating opportunities that genuinely benefit the population rather than fulfilling obligations imposed by foreign powers. Critics may question the motives or the prudence of such a shift, but the essence lies in the right to choose. Sovereignty is about empowerment and respect. It is about standing tall in the face of history's burdens and declaring that this nation will no longer be shaped by the agendas of others. This assertion is not just political rhetoric. It is a call to restore dignity and agency to a people who have long been expected to acquiesce. To understand the depth of this move, one must consider the context of decades of external influence that often compromise the country's sovereignty. Decisions about resources, security, and governance were frequently influenced or directly controlled by those outside the nation's borders. This undermined the confidence of the people and limited the country's ability to pursue its own vision. Reclaiming sovereignty is therefore a step toward healing and rebuilding trust between the government and its citizens, showing that their leaders are committed to serving their interests above all else. Ultimately, sovereignty is the foundation upon which a nation builds its future. It is the bedrock of true independence, the source of national pride, and the guarantee that the country's destiny lies in its own hands. By choosing to engage with new partners who respect this principle, the nation affirms that it will no longer be subject to the whims of outside powers. Instead, it embraces a future defined by its own people, a future where freedom, dignity, and self-determination are not just ideals but lived realities. This decision is a powerful and necessary step on the path to full sovereignty. It is an act of courage and conviction, signaling to the world that this nation will no longer accept anything less than the right to decide its own course. It is a statement that independence is not just about borders or flags, but about control over one's own destiny. In reclaiming sovereignty, the nation takes its rightful place as an equal participant in the community of nations, respected for its autonomy and empowered by its freedom. For many years, this nation has found itself entangled in alliances that promised friendship and support, but often came with hidden conditions that compromised its freedom and independence. These traditional alliances, while outwardly framed as partnerships, were too frequently one-sided arrangements where the true cost was paid in lost autonomy and the subordination of national interests to those of others. The decision to move away from such conditional relationships signals a profound shift, a deliberate rejection of cooperation that breeds dependency, and the embrace of partnerships grounded in equality, respect, and shared goals. Alliances, by their nature, should be built on trust and mutual benefit. Yet too often, this country's experience has been the opposite. Assistance and collaboration came with strings attached, expectations to align policies, restrict sovereignty, or prioritize external agendas over the needs of its own people. The price for support was often silent consent to influence that shaped decisions in ways that did not reflect the nation's true aspirations. This pattern fostered a relationship of dependency, where the country's development and security became tied to the will of others rather than its own vision and capabilities. The recognition of this dynamic has led to a decisive turning point. The desire now is to cultivate partnerships where the exchange is genuine, where cooperation does not come at the expense of independence. This shift is not a rejection of diplomacy or international friendship, but a call for a new kind of engagement, one that respects sovereignty, values equal footing, and acknowledges the legitimate interests of all parties involved. It is a demand that alliances serve the people they are meant to help, rather than control or limit them. This approach reflects an understanding that real progress cannot be built on fragile foundations of conditional support. Dependency creates vulnerability, making a nation susceptible to pressure, manipulation, and loss of self-determination. The move toward new partnerships is a strategic effort to break free from these cycles of reliance and foster relationships where each side contributes fairly and benefits mutually. It is an investment in resilience and autonomy, ensuring that cooperation strengthens the country's capacity to stand on its own feet. Furthermore, rejecting conditional alliances signals a refusal to accept the outdated notion that cooperation requires submission. The world is evolving, and with it, the understanding of what true partnership means. It is no longer acceptable for one party to dictate terms or wield influence disproportionately. This nation's new course is aligned with a global shift toward more balanced, respectful relations, where dialogue replaces dictates and mutual respect underpins agreements. This transition also speaks to the aspirations of the nation's people. They want their government to engage internationally in ways that uplift and empower, not constrain and control. They seek alliances that bring tangible benefits without sacrificing principles or autonomy. The move away from conditional alliances is a response to this call, a promise to prioritize the well-being and dignity of the population above all else. Critically, this shift encourages a broader re-examination of international relations. It challenges the old frameworks that often perpetuate inequality and dependency, proposing instead a vision of cooperation that is inclusive, fair, and respectful. By embracing new partners who share this philosophy, the nation is positioning itself within a more just and equitable global order, one where every country's sovereignty and interests are honored. The consequences of rejecting conditional alliances extend beyond foreign policy. It impacts economic development, security strategies, and social progress. When partnerships are free from coercive conditions, the country can pursue policies tailored to its unique context and needs. It can invest in sectors that drive sustainable growth, implement security measures that truly protect its people, and foster social programs that reflect local priorities without external strings. This freedom to act independently is crucial for building a future that is stable, prosperous, and self-reliant. Some may view this shift with skepticism or concern, fearing isolation or instability. But true independence does not mean isolation. It means choosing collaborators wisely and asserting the right to make decisions that serve the national interest. It means moving beyond the notion that survival depends on submission and instead embracing a model where cooperation enhances strength and dignity. Ultimately, the rejection of conditional alliances is an expression of national maturity and confidence. It reflects a willingness to stand firm in the face of pressure and to seek relationships that respect the nation's right to self-governance. It is a bold statement that the country will no longer accept partnerships that limit its freedom or undermine its future. This step marks a turning point in the nation's history, one where diplomacy is redefined not by power imbalances, but by principles of fairness and respect. By choosing new partners who honor these values, the nation is crafting a path towards sustainable progress built on trust, equality, and shared purpose. It is a path that empowers the country to thrive on its own terms, ensuring that cooperation serves as a tool for empowerment rather than control. In rejecting conditional alliances, the nation embraces a future where its sovereignty is protected, its interests prioritized, and its dignity upheld. This is not just a strategic pivot, it is a reaffirmation of the fundamental right of every country to engage in the world as an equal, respected, and autonomous actor. It is a vision of partnership that honors both independence and cooperation, a vision that promises a stronger, freer, and more resilient nation for generations to come. For any nation, the defense of its national interests is the cornerstone of its survival and prosperity. This includes safeguarding its territory, ensuring the security of its people, and protecting its valuable resources from exploitation. The choice to seek new partnerships is not a decision made lightly or for mere political posturing. It is a deliberate and strategic effort to reclaim control over these vital aspects of sovereignty, particularly in light of a history marked by external powers that have too often undermined the country's autonomy and well-being. Throughout history, the nation has faced numerous challenges stemming from outside interference in its internal affairs. Foreign powers have at times viewed the country's territory and resources as prizes to be controlled or exploited, rather than assets to be managed by its rightful owners. This legacy of exploitation has resulted in economic disparities, security vulnerabilities, and political instability, which continue to affect the nation's development today. The recognition of this reality drives the urgent need to realign international relationships with partners who respect the country's sovereignty and share a commitment to mutual benefit rather than domination. The defense of national interests begins with the protection of territorial integrity. The land itself is more than just a physical space. It is the foundation of identity, culture, and future potential. Ensuring that borders remain secure and inviolable is essential to maintaining national unity and peace. However, safeguarding this integrity requires reliable partnerships that do not pursue their own agendas at the expense of the country's sovereignty. Too often, previous alliances have come with compromises that left the nation vulnerable to external pressures and even incursions. Seeking new alliances is a way to build stronger, more respectful cooperation that bolsters security without demanding concessions that weaken the country's control over its own territory. Equally critical is the protection of national security. The safety of citizens from external threats, whether military, economic, or cyber, is paramount. National security cannot be guaranteed through dependence on powers whose interests may conflict with the nation's own. History has shown that relying on such powers can lead to compromised decisions, delayed responses, and even abandonment in times of crisis. New partnerships must therefore be forged on the basis of shared respect and genuine commitment to mutual defense. These relationships aim to enhance the nation's own capabilities and readiness, not diminish them, allowing it to respond effectively to threats without compromising its independence. Natural resources represent another vital component of national interests. These resources are the lifeblood of economic growth and social development. Unfortunately, the country's wealth and resources has often attracted foreign interests more concerned with extraction and profit than with sustainable development and fair distribution. The exploitation of resources without adequate benefit to the local population has perpetuated poverty and inequality, fueling frustration and instability. By seeking new partnerships, the nation is asserting its right to manage its resources responsibly, ensuring that exploitation is replaced by equitable development. It is a move to reclaim control over its wealth so that it serves the people first and foremost. This broader effort to protect national interests through new partnerships reflects a profound understanding of the need for sovereignty in today's interconnected world. It is not isolationism, but a strategic recalibration to ensure that international relations contribute positively to the country's strength and resilience. It involves aligning with partners who respect national boundaries, who prioritize security cooperation over coercion, and who support economic collaboration that empowers rather than exploits. Moreover, this shift is driven by the realization that genuine security and development cannot be achieved under the shadow of conditional alliances or hegemonic influence. National interests must come first, and this requires partnerships built on equality and mutual respect. The nation's leaders understand that cooperation should enhance their ability to defend their land, protect their people, and develop their resources, not diminish it. The defense of national interests also includes protecting the country's political independence. Sovereignty is not only about physical territory, but also about the freedom to make decisions that reflect the will and welfare of the people. This means resisting external pressures that seek to influence internal governance, policy choices, or economic directions. By seeking new partnerships, the nation aims to surround itself with friends who honor its right to self-determination and support its journey towards sustainable and inclusive growth. This approach has a long-term vision. It recognizes that true security and prosperity come from within, but also that strategic alliances can amplify national strength when based on trust and respect. It rejects any relationships that demand subservience or compromise at the cost of national dignity. Instead, it pursues a path that empowers the country to protect its interests proactively, to stand firm against exploitation, and to build a future where its people can thrive in peace and stability. Some may argue that such a recalibration risks alienating traditional allies or introducing uncertainty. However, the pursuit of new partnerships is not about abandoning old friends. It is about diversifying relationships and strengthening the nation's hand. It is a pragmatic and necessary response to a complex world where reliance on a narrow set of powers can leave a country vulnerable to shifting geopolitical tides. Ultimately, the defense of national interests through new partnerships is a testament to the nation's determination to take control of its destiny. It is a commitment to protect what is rightfully its own, its land, its people, and its resources, while engaging with the world on terms that are fair and respectful. This is an assertion of sovereignty and a declaration that the country will no longer allow its future to be shaped by those who do not have its best interests at heart. In choosing this path, the nation signals to the world that it is ready to be a responsible, independent actor, one that values cooperation but never at the expense of its core interests. It is a bold step towards securing peace, stability, and prosperity for current and future generations, grounded in the unwavering defense of national interests. For far too long, the nation has endured a history marked by silence. a silence born out of oppression, neglect, and the imposition of foreign will. This silence was not chosen willingly, but was imposed by circumstances that forced the people into submission and invisibility on the global stage. Yet that era of quiet acquiescence is now over. The decision to break this historical silence is a powerful and deliberate act of reclaiming voice, agency, and identity. It signals a collective awakening and an unyielding determination to no longer be marginalized or ignored. Throughout history, many forces sought to suppress the nation's voice. Political domination, economic exploitation, cultural erasure, and social marginalization all contributed to a sense that the people had no place in shaping their own destiny. Their struggles, their aspirations, and their grievances were too often dismissed or silenced altogether. This historical silence created a legacy of invisibility, where the nation was seen as passive or powerless, rather than a dynamic and capable actor in its own right. The consequences were profound: missed opportunities, unaddressed injustices, and a sense of resignation that hindered progress. Today, however, that silence is being shattered. The act of speaking out and acting freely is not just symbolic. It is a profound assertion of identity and self-worth. It is a refusal to remain in the shadows of history and an embrace of the right to be heard, respected, and recognized. This newfound voice carries with it the hopes and dreams of generations who have waited patiently for a chance to shape their own future. It represents a collective refusal to accept narratives imposed from outside, and instead, a determination to tell the nation's own story on its own terms. Breaking the silence is also an act of empowerment. When a people find their voice, they reclaim control over their narrative and their destiny. They move from passive subjects of history to active participants in shaping their own path. This transformation requires courage and resilience because it challenges long-standing power structures that benefited from the nation's quiet compliance. It demands confronting uncomfortable truths and asserting rights that have been denied or ignored. Yet, it also opens the door to new possibilities, opportunities for genuine dialogue, for justice, and for meaningful change. This act of breaking silence extends beyond rhetoric. It is reflected in bold decisions that demonstrate the nation's commitment to independence and self-determination. Choosing new partnerships, asserting sovereignty, and defending national interests are all expressions of a people who have found their voice and refuse to be silenced again. It is a declaration that the nation will no longer accept being sidelined or dictated to by others. Instead, it will engage with the world confidently and on its own terms, contributing its perspectives, values, and strengths. The refusal to remain voiceless also resonates deeply within the national consciousness. It inspires pride and unity, reminding citizens of their shared history and collective power. It encourages participation in governance, social development, and international relations, fostering a sense of ownership and responsibility. This awakening is vital for nation building because it strengthens the social fabric and promotes resilience against external and internal challenges. Furthermore, breaking historical silence has important implications for how the nation is perceived globally. For too long, it was overshadowed by stereotypes, misunderstandings, or neglect. Now, by speaking out and asserting itself, the country demands recognition as a sovereign entity with legitimate interests and contributions. This shift challenges outdated perceptions and invites the international community to engage with the nation on a basis of respect and equality. It opens pathways for new alliances and partnerships grounded in genuine dialogue and mutual benefit. The process of breaking silence also involves reclaiming cultural identity. History often attempted to erase or diminish the unique traditions, languages, and values that define the nation. Speaking freely means reviving and celebrating this heritage, fostering a sense of belonging and continuity. It connects past struggles to present aspirations and future dreams, creating a narrative that honors resilience and hope. This cultural renaissance strengthens the nation internally and projects a vibrant image to the world. Of course, breaking silence is not without challenges. It requires confronting opposition from those who resist change or fear the loss of influence. It demands persistence in the face of criticism, misunderstanding, or attempts to delegitimize the nation's voice. Yet, the determination to speak and act freely proves stronger than these obstacles. It is fueled by the conviction that every nation deserves dignity and the right to chart its own course. This moment of breaking historical silence is a turning point. It marks the transition from passive endurance to active engagement, from imposed invisibility to celebrated presence. It embodies the spirit of a people who refuse to be defined by their past subjugation, but choose instead to define their own future. It is a powerful reminder that silence is not the natural state of any nation, that the true strength of a people lies in their voice and their will to be heard. By stepping out of the shadows, the nation embraces a new era of freedom, dignity, and possibility. It declares to the world and to itself that it will no longer be silent or submissive. Instead, it will stand proudly, speak boldly, and act decisively in pursuit of its rightful place among the community of nations. This act of breaking historical silence is both a culmination of past struggles and a promise of a brighter, self-determined future. For decades, the global order has been shaped by a familiar hierarchy, nations that held power and influence, and those that were expected to follow, comply, or remain in the background. This arrangement, while often unspoken, was understood and rarely challenged openly. Many countries were relegated to roles of lesser prominence, their voices muted or overlooked, their ambitions constrained by the expectations imposed by dominant powers. Yet what is unfolding now is a profound disruption of that order. The shock felt by the world is not because of any sudden aggression or hostility, but because those who were once considered subordinate are stepping forward with newfound confidence, asserting themselves boldly and unapologetically. This shift is unsettling to many because it challenges long-standing assumptions about power, influence, and global leadership. For so long, the international system operated on implicit rules that favored established powers and maintained existing structures. The rise of voices from previously marginalized nations disrupts this equilibrium, forcing a reconsideration of who belongs at the table and who gets to shape the rules. This is not an act of rebellion born out of anger or resentment, but a natural and inevitable assertion of equality and dignity. The surprise expressed by the global community reflects a deep-seated resistance to change. It is easier to accept a world where the same powers dictate terms and make decisions than to confront the realities of a more diverse and multipolar world. When nations that have historically been sidelined begin to articulate their interests clearly and pursue partnerships on their own terms, it challenges the status quo. This disruption compels established powers to adjust, adapt, or defend their positions, often revealing anxieties about losing influence or control. This bold assertion by once subordinate nations is also a testament to their resilience and determination. Despite centuries of marginalization, exploitation, and underrepresentation, these countries have cultivated the strength to demand recognition and respect. Their actions are rooted in a clear understanding of their own worth and rights. They refuse to be defined by past limitations or external perceptions. Instead, they embrace their identities and capacities, contributing meaningfully to global affairs while safeguarding their sovereignty. The global shock is also fueled by the speed and decisiveness of this emergence. The world has witnessed rapid political, economic, and social changes that have empowered these nations in ways previously unimaginable. Technological advancements, shifting alliances, and new economic opportunities have all played a role in leveling the playing field. These countries now leverage their resources, strategic positions, and diplomatic efforts to forge new partnerships that reflect their ambitions. Their assertiveness signals that the era of passive compliance is over. It is important to emphasize that this emergence is not inherently confrontational. The aim is not to destabilize the international system through conflict or discord, but to reshape it to be more inclusive and representative. The assertiveness displayed is a demand for fairness and recognition, not a declaration of hostility. Yet, for those accustomed to a world where power was concentrated and uncontested, this demand can appear threatening. The shock arises from a world forced to acknowledge that the previous order was exclusionary and is no longer sustainable. This changing dynamic has profound implications for global diplomacy. The traditional centers of power can no longer dictate terms unilaterally or assume unquestioned leadership. They must engage with a broader range of voices, listen to diverse perspectives, and negotiate in good faith with equals rather than subjects. This evolution promises a more balanced and equitable international system, but also requires significant adjustments in mindset and policy. The assertion of formerly subordinate nations also enriches global discourse by introducing new ideas, priorities, and approaches. Their participation brings attention to issues that were previously marginalized or ignored, such as equitable development, climate justice, and cultural diversity. Their boldness challenges all nations to rethink assumptions and strive for solutions that benefit a wider spectrum of humanity. This is a transformative moment that offers the possibility of a more just and inclusive world order. Resistance to this change is natural, but ultimately futile. History shows that power structures evolve as new actors emerge and demand their rightful place. Attempts to suppress or marginalize these voices only delay the inevitable and often exacerbate tensions. Embracing this shift, rather than fearing it, opens pathways for cooperation, innovation, and shared prosperity. The global shock is therefore a reaction to the undeniable fact that the world is becoming more multipolar and democratic in its distribution of influence. The previously silent or sidelined nations are speaking out, not with aggression, but with clarity and confidence. Their assertiveness is a declaration that the future belongs to a world where no one is permanently subordinate, and all nations have the opportunity to shape their destinies. This moment challenges everyone, established powers and emerging nations alike, to reconsider what leadership means in the 21st century. It calls for humility, openness, and a commitment to fairness. The surprise and discomfort some feel is a sign that real change is underway, a change that promises a more inclusive and dynamic global community. In embracing this transformation, the world stands to gain not only from increased stability and justice, but also from the creative energy and diverse perspectives that these newly assertive nations bring. Their boldness is not a threat, but an invitation to build a world where power is shared and cooperation is based on respect. Ultimately, the global shock is a reflection of a profound and necessary shift in the balance of power. It is the sound of history making way for a new era, one where those once considered subordinate rise to claim their place unapologetically and with dignity. This is not the end of order, but the beginning of a more equitable and representative one. Building a new path forward is not simply about making changes for the sake of change. It is a deeply rooted vision for the future that centers on empowerment, self-reliance, and the unwavering belief that a nation must shape its own destiny. This vision is comprehensive and forward-looking, encompassing the education of the youth, the development of a robust economy, and the assertion of autonomy in deciding its course without external imposition. It reflects an understanding that true progress is sustainable only when it is built from within, guided by the values, needs, and aspirations of the people themselves. At the heart of this vision lies the education of the youth. Investing in the younger generation is investing in the future of the nation. It is through education that the country will cultivate the leaders, innovators, and skilled professionals who will drive transformation across all sectors. This vision emphasizes not just access to education, but the quality and relevance of that education. It aims to equip young people with critical thinking skills, technological literacy, and a deep understanding of their culture and history. This foundation prepares them not only to compete globally, but also to contribute meaningfully to their communities. Empowering the youth through education also means nurturing a sense of pride and responsibility. By teaching them about their heritage and the struggles their nation has overcome, education becomes a tool for building identity and resilience. It instills confidence that their voices matter and that they have a vital role to play in shaping the future. This approach rejects passive acceptance of external narratives and instead promotes active participation in national development. It envisions a generation ready to innovate, lead reforms, and challenge old paradigms in pursuit of a better tomorrow. Parallel to education is the development of a self-sustaining economy that can provide prosperity and stability for the nation's people. Economic development in this vision is not about short-term gains or dependence on volatile external markets. Instead, it is focused on building diverse industries, promoting local entrepreneurship, and harnessing the country's natural and human resources responsibly. This includes investing in agriculture, manufacturing, technology, and services in ways that create jobs and foster sustainable growth. The vision calls for economic policies that prioritize national interests while engaging in fair trade and international cooperation. It recognizes the importance of innovation and adaptation in a rapidly changing global economy. By encouraging local businesses and startups, the country can reduce reliance on imports and create a resilient economic base. This economic development is closely linked with social progress, aiming to reduce poverty, improve healthcare, and enhance infrastructure, ensuring that the benefits of growth reach all citizens. Developing the economy on its own terms also means confronting and overcoming historical challenges such as exploitation and inequality. This vision rejects economic models imposed by external powers that often benefit a few while leaving many behind. Instead, it champions inclusive growth that respects workers' rights, promotes gender equality, and ensures environmental sustainability. It envisions a future where economic progress goes hand in hand with social justice and ecological stewardship. Defining its own destiny is the ultimate expression of sovereignty embedded in this vision. It means the country will make decisions based on its own priorities and values, free from external coercion or undue influence. This autonomy extends across political, economic, and social realms. It includes setting policies that reflect the will of the people, preserving cultural heritage, and maintaining control over natural resources. It affirms the nation's right to engage internationally on equal footing, forming partnerships that respect its sovereignty and mutual benefit rather than dependency. This aspect of the vision also highlights the importance of transparent and accountable governance. A nation that defines its own destiny must build institutions that serve the people effectively and fairly. This includes combating corruption, fostering civic participation, and ensuring the rule of law. Strong institutions provide the stability and trust necessary for sustainable development and help protect the country's independence from internal and external threats. Moreover, this vision is deeply connected to the values of dignity and hope. It reflects a collective commitment to overcome past difficulties and build a future where every citizen has the opportunity to thrive. It encourages innovation while honoring tradition, blending modernity with cultural richness. It inspires a sense of unity and shared purpose, reminding all that the nation's future depends on cooperation and common goals. The path forward envisioned here is not without challenges. It requires patience, perseverance, and the courage to make difficult decisions. It demands investment in human capital, infrastructure, and technology. It calls for policies that balance growth with social equity and environmental care. Yet, the vision remains clear and compelling because it offers a roadmap to independence, prosperity, and respect on the global stage. It is also a vision that acknowledges the interconnectedness of the world while insisting on the right to self-determination. The country will engage with other nations as a confident partner, contributing its unique perspectives and resources. It will seek alliances that support its development goals without compromising its autonomy. This balanced approach enables participation in global affairs without losing sight of national priorities. Ultimately, this vision is about hope and possibility. It affirms that the nation is not bound by its past nor by external expectations, but is capable of charting a course toward a better future. It celebrates the resilience of its people and their capacity to learn, grow, and innovate. It recognizes that the foundation of any lasting progress is the freedom to define one's own path. In embracing this vision, the nation commits to empowering its youth, building a strong and inclusive economy, and asserting its rightful place in the world. It pledges to overcome challenges through unity, determination, and wise leadership. This is a future where the country no longer waits for others to decide its fate, but boldly takes the reins itself, shaping a destiny that reflects its values, ambitions, and dreams. It is a vision not just for survival, but for flourishing, a vision that inspires and guides every step forward.